Okay, very good morning once again, guys. Welcome back. In the previous class, we were discussing about some error recovery methods, I think, right? So, once again, I brief it and then I go to next topic. Okay, don't worry. But before going to next topic, today I want to tell you some prerequisites because in the next topics, these all the concepts are going to come. So here only briefly I want to explain it, then automatically you will understand the next topics. Okay. So here once again I think I told you what is the leftmost derivation and how we should do it leftmost derivation. Okay. So here once again I show you if you want I make my screen zoom. Okay, I think now it is visible properly for you. Here in this diagram, whatever I am showing you in this diagram, there are two parse trees are there. Okay, parse tree is also called as syntax tree. Okay, so parse tree or syntax tree are the output of our syntax analysis phase of our compilation process, right? Because first phase was lexical analysis, second phase is syntax analysis, third one is a semantic analysis. First three phases I am discussing, correct? So first phase lexical analysis takes the input characters from our program, whatever we have written. Then it is going to group them in terms of lexemes, and for each lexeme it will generate a token, and these set of tokens will be the input to the next phase, that is a syntax analysis, and syntax analysis will take these all. Syntax analysis is nothing but it is parsing. Okay, that is syntax analyzer or parser. So that parser will take this all set of tokens, and then it starts to construct the uh, parse trees or syntax tree. So parse tree or syntax tree is the output of a syntax analysis phase. So here, how it is going to construct these parse trees? Already I told you, with the help of grammar, it will construct the parse tree. It means if somebody gives you any grammar, for that grammar you can construct a parse tree or you can draw a parse tree or syntax tree. So based on that grammar, once it takes the tokens, so according to the grammar, it constructs its these parse trees or syntax trees. If for a same grammar, it means for a single grammar, if you are able to draw more than one parse tree, for example, two parse trees, three parse trees, if you are able to draw for a single or same grammar, then that grammar is called as ambiguous grammar, because it is allowing you to construct two or three or more than three or more than one parse trees or syntax trees, right? So which one we have to choose, how to parse our input, this confusion will rise in our mind. So this type of grammars will be called as ambiguous grammars. Ambiguous is nothing but confusion. Since they are creating a confusion in your mind, we will call them as ambiguous grammar. So in this diagram, I have shown you two parse trees. One is a left side and one is a right side here. Okay. So just now you concentrate on the left side parse tree. Okay. So you can write the grammar by looking into this parse tree. It means usually what happens, grammar will be given to you and you have to draw this parse tree, right? Now I am directly showing you the parse tree, so you should imagine that what would have been this grammar for this parse tree. Okay, just imagine this A is a root node. Just keep on observing my mouse pointer. A is a root node and this A is a left subtree, and this is a again a left subtree, right? So here A plus A. Okay, so A arrow mark A plus B, A plus A. This is my first production of my grammar. First line, first production of my grammar. Then A plus A. After that, what is going on here? Here, this leftmost A is there. No, this can be replaced by small letter A. Okay, which is a terminal. Okay, so after that we cannot able to derive it or define it. So next A plus, what about this right side A? So this right side A is again derived like A minus A. Okay, so then this A is nothing but again small a, This A is nothing but again small a. So at the end, which string you are getting? You are getting the string A plus A minus A plus A minus A. This string you are getting, right? So once you concentrate on right side parse tree, here also you are getting the same string A plus A minus A. Okay, so A plus A minus A. If a grammar is allowing you to get same string, okay, if a grammar is allowing you to get a same string with two parse trees, then that grammar is ambiguous grammar. Okay, and also if two grammars are allowing you or they are leading to get same string, then we can call both of those grammars as equivalent grammar. Okay, so when one grammar is going to create more than one parse tree, it is ambiguous grammar. If two grammars are going to create same string or two grammars are going to produce the same string, then we can call those two grammars as equivalent grammars. So I told you all cases now. So if it is one grammar and producing more than one parse tree, what we should call it? And if two grammars and if they are producing the same string, then what we should call it? First one is ambiguous grammar, second one is equivalent grammars. Clear? So once you concentrate on this left side one, here if you perform leftmost derivation is nothing but, here I am going to show you the leftmost derivation procedure here. You just keep on observing here. So first, what is the start symbol in my production or in my grammar or in this tree? That is a root node will be the always a symbol tree. Okay, sorry, start symbol. So root node is what here? It is a which is a start symbol. It is going to define a as a plus a as per this diagram I am showing you. So grammar I am writing now. So a plus a. So a plus a. Then again this leftmost a is there. Here two a's we got now. Okay. In RHS of my production, I got two a's. So in these two capital letter a's, in this leftmost a, if this leftmost a is replaced by a, and if that rightmost a is kept as it is, then it is nothing but leftmost derivation. It means that you are keep on replacing the leftmost non-terminal with a terminal. I hope you are understanding. You just keep on listening my explanation. Okay, so if you are replacing a leftmost non-terminal with a terminal, then it is called as a leftmost derivation procedure. Okay, so after you get this small letter a plus capital letter A, again what you can do here, this a is as it is here, this a is as it is, and next what you are going to do is you are going to replace this capital letter A now. Okay, so this a I am going to write it as a minus capital letter A, capital letter A minus capital letter A. So I have written it as a minus a. Then again among these two a's, so actually there are three terms are here in this one, small letter a plus capital A minus capital A. So again among these two capital A, that is two non-terminals, the first leftmost non-terminal you should replace by terminals. So again that first a is as it is here, and then next this a is replaced as a, this a is replaced as a. Are you observing? Right? So next this is replaced by a, then last a is kept as it is. Then last this a is also replaced by small letter a. Then our string generated or produced by our grammar or parse tree is a plus a minus a. And these all are terminals. No any non-terminal is present here. So these are leaf nodes of my parse tree. These are leaves of my parse tree. Clear? Okay. Here, for this same tree, if you apply rightmost derivation, I think already you understood now what is the meaning of rightmost derivation. Wherever you get two non-terminals, in that two non-terminals, you should not only two, more than two may be also there. So rightmost non-terminal you should replace by a terminal. So let us try it once again. Again a the first production I am talking about. Okay, you just look into this diagram. A can be written as A plus A. Then among these two A's, which is the rightmost capital letter A? This one. So if you replace this A by A minus A, it will become A plus A minus A. Here again three non-terminals we got. Three non-terminals we got. Among these three, which one is the rightmost? This one is the rightmost. So you replace it. So then it becomes A plus A minus small letter A. Correct? It means that I am here now. Okay, this A in this diagram. Then again, if you go one more step ahead, then it becomes A plus small a minus small a. At last, small a plus small a minus small a. So this is about rightmost derivation. Clear? So here in this case, both leftmost derivation as well as rightmost derivation are going to give you the same string. Clear? So leftmost derivation is nothing but keep on replacing the leftmost non-terminal by a terminal. Rightmost derivation is nothing but keep on replacing the rightmost non-terminal by the terminals. Okay. So then now you concentrate on this rightmost right side diagram, parse tree. So here for this one, the leftmost derivation will be like this. You can observe here this diagram. Okay. So this leftmost A is derived as A plus A. Okay. So first this A is derived as A minus A, and this leftmost A is derived as A plus A, and this A is A plus A minus A. So for this right side diagram, for the right side parse tree or syntax tree, the leftmost derivation will be like this. A is deriving A minus A. Okay, A minus A. So earlier what it was? It was A plus A, but this time it is A minus A. Then again here, leftmost A is which one? This one. So it will be replaced as A plus A. So this A is rewritten as A plus A, or it is replaced by A plus A. Then minus A is as it is. Then now onwards, once again you find out among these three capital letters A's, which one is a leftmost A, this one is a leftmost A. So replace it by terminal A. Then capital letter A minus A as it is. Then next A will be replaced by small a. Then last A will be replaced by small a. Then again we are getting A plus A minus A. Okay. So this is how we can do leftmost derivation for this one. Okay. Right side parse tree. Okay. So now for this same tree, if you apply rightmost derivation, then it will be like this. A is derived as A minus A. Okay, it is true. Then next is A minus A. It means here you are going to replace this rightmost capital A by small a. Now next task is you have to replace this capital A. So what is a capital A? Capital A is A plus A. So you have written it as A plus A minus small letter a as it is. Okay. Then among these two A's, again rightmost A is which one? This one. So you replace it by A, then it become capital A plus small a minus small a. Then after that only one A is the remaining, that is non-terminal is remaining now. Then at last step you replace that also. Then it becomes A plus A minus A. So right now you understood what is the leftmost derivation and the rightmost derivation. Guys, just remember leftmost derivation is nothing but keep on replacing the leftmost non-terminal by the terminals. Okay, and the rightmost derivation is the replacement of rightmost non-terminal by the terminals. Clear? So just understand this one because it is very, very important. Next, what I wanted to tell you is, as in previous class I already told you, LL parsing and LR parser. So what do you mean by LL and LR? Once again I tell you, LL, its first L is telling you, you scan the input from left to right. Okay, you scan the input from left to right. Okay, associativity is left to right. Then second capital L is there, no, here this capital L. This capital L is nothing but it is a leftmost derivation. You do the leftmost derivation. Clear now? So if you want to use this parsing method or this LL1 grammar, so here this LL1 parsing is very much suitable for, keep it in your mind always, it is very very helpful. This LL1 parsing is very helpful for top down parsing, not for bottom up parsing, remember. Okay, so top down parsing means you will start constructing your tree from root node and you will end with a leaf node. Root node to leaf node, your journey of your construction of your tree will be from root node to leaf node, that is top to bottom. So if you are constructing your tree in that way, then this LL parsing is very helpful. It means that there you should keep on scanning the inputs from left to right, and which derivation you should perform, leftmost derivation you should perform. Clear? And this LL parsing or LL grammars are very much suitable for top down parsing, remember, right? Now next one is LR parser. LR parser, already I told you in previous class, once again I am repeating so that you will understand better. Very important concepts guys for your exams. So maybe little bit small amount of confusions you may be get, but if you once you understand, it is very easy. The only thing is you should have a concentration with me. Okay, so second type of parsing or second type of grammars are LR grammar or LR parser or LR parsing. The first L again tells me you scan the input from left to right. Okay, you scan the input from left to right, so again associativity is from left to right. Then after that capital R is there. This R is nothing but what it is, you perform rightmost derivation. So this LR parser is very much suitable for bottom up parsers. Bottom up parsing means, so you construct the tree from starting from the leaf node and then you end with a root node. Okay, so it is in a reverse order. That is, you start constructing a parse tree or syntax tree from leaf node, then you end the construction at the root node, that is bottom up parsing. So always remember guys, LL parser, LR parser. First L always represent that scanning the input from left to right, and then in second capital L here it is representing that it is you perform a leftmost derivation, and this parsing is very much suitable for top down parser or parsing, that is to construct the tree from top to bottom, root to leaf node. But in LR also, first L is representing a scan the input from once again from left to right, but capital R is representing you perform a rightmost derivation. So this parsing is very much suitable for bottom up parsing. So here only I told you, see, it is one type of bottom up parsing. Bottom up parsing is nothing but you start the construction of your tree from leaf node to root node. Clear guys? Then I come to top down parser now. Okay, that is top down parsing. This top down parsing is again categorized into two or more than two types here. Actually, this top down is again it is categorized as, there is one more type of top down parsing is there, that is called as recursive descent. Recursive descent. Okay, see, top down parsing, what it does, it starts constructing parse tree from root node to gradually to the leaf nodes. The types of top down parsing are recursive descent, and this recursive descent is again categorized into backtracking and non-backtracking. It means this recursive descent, sometimes it uses backtracking and sometimes it will not use non-backtracking. This non-backtracking is again categorized into, or it may be called as a predictive parser. So the recursive descent parsing, recursive descent grammar, okay, recursive descent parser or recursive descent grammar or recursive descent parsing may not have backtracking. So it is non-backtracking recursive descent. If it is not using any backtracking, then it is called as predictive parser. Predictive parser, and it will be usually appearing in LL parser. So don't worry, what is this recursive descent, backtracking and non-backtracking, I will tell you. Don't worry. Okay. See here, recursive descent. Recursive descent is a type of a top-down parsing. It is a top-down parsing. As usual, as I am calling it as a top-down parsing, it constructs the parse tree from to the top to the bottom. Okay. And input is reading from left to right. Okay, so then it uses some procedures for every terminal and non-terminal entity. Okay, so then this parsing technique recursively parses the input to make a parse tree. Continuously it will be keep on parsing, keep on scanning the input to create this syntax tree, and which may or may not require backtracking. It is very, very important. So recursive parsing, recursive descent is nothing but it is a top down descent. Descent is there. So what is the meaning of recursive and descent? Recursive is nothing but repeatedly, redundancy, continuously, repeatedly. It is a structure. It is scanning the inputs or parsing the inputs, and it is structure. It is creating the tree from top to bottom, because it is a descent, recursive descent. But during this task, sometimes it may require backtracking, sometimes it may not require backtracking. Backtracking means what here? I will tell you clearly. Don't worry. Okay, backtracking. Its meaning itself is a backtracking. It means that if any string is not matching with our pattern, then we can go back to the parent node and we can search for the next input character, and we will accept that next input string if it is matched. Okay, so that is going back to our parent node is nothing but it is a backtracking. Okay, sometimes this going back to our parent node is not required. That because of that only it is called as, sometimes it is it is requiring backtracking, or it is not requiring not backtracking. Okay, so here this is very important. See, if any recursive descent parsing, if it doesn't want any backtracking, then that recursive descent parsing is called as predictive parsing. Very, very important term, guys. Remember these all technical words, what I am talking. Predictive parsing is nothing but it is also recursive descent parsing only, but without backtracking. So, recursive descent parsing with non-backtracking. Okay, that is called as a predictive parsing. Remember, if I am not going back to my parent node, then that grammar is called as predictive parsing. Okay, okay, guys. This parsing technique regarding regarding recursive grammar, which is recursive in nature. Now come back to backtracking. Exact meaning of backtracking I am going to explain here. Okay, so try to understand here. Top-down parser starts from root node to leaf node. I told you that is root node is nothing but start symbol. Root node is nothing but start symbol. And what it does, it keep on matching the input string. It will keep on matching the input string against the production rules as per or according to our grammar or production rules. So according to these productions rules, it is going to replace those non-terminals if they are not matched. It means it is going to replace the string if they are not matched. To understand this better, you just consider this example. Okay, this example you consider here. This is one grammar. Okay, so that is called as context free grammar. In simplicity, you can call it as a grammar. Here, first production is S is deriving, which is a start symbol. Always remember, start symbols usually we represent with capital letter S. Okay, these all notations today I am going to discuss. Don't worry. When we should use which capital letter, when we should use small letter, all those things I tell you now. Don't worry. So always, usually, most of the times we represent capital S for start symbol. That is the non-terminal of first production or head of first production in my grammar. So S is going to give me this string, that is a terminal, R followed by capital X followed by small letter D. or else this capital S may be RZD. Then what do you mean by X and Z? Right? These are non-terminals. So these X and Z I am defining here as OA, or else X may be EA and Z will be AI. Okay. And suppose in your program, if you have written one small word like this, that is READ, read, in your program or in your any text, input text, if you have written READ, then how it will be matched? Okay, in a parse down parser. So once if you are scanning this input, our top down parser will do these all tasks. How it will do this all task? So first it will start from, yes, definitely, right, from the production rules, and it will match its yield to leftmost letter of the input, that is what? Small letter r, small letter r. So once you look into this capital S production, that is first production, in both the yields, okay, it means both the results of S, if you observe, the leftmost character is small letter r, small letter r. So still it cannot take a decision that whether I should match this one or I should match this one by looking into only one first character, because both of them are having the same first character, that is small letter r. Then our top down parser, what it does, the very production of S matches with it, because it means that this, the very first production of S matches. Okay, so why? Because why I am telling you this will not be matched, because you, if you observe not only this production, if you look into next productions, okay, so here okay, this R is matched already, remember. Okay, your task is completed. Now next task is what here? You should keep on matching E, A, D. Next characters are E, A, D in your input, right? E, A, D in your input. So now already R is matched. You can take this one or you can take this one, no problem. But next question is whether you should take this X or you should take this capital Z. So the here the solution is just look into this capital X, whether it is going to help you or not. First one is OA, but here it is EA. So it is not required. So you will remove this. You will not take this. But here second is there, no, that is EA. So this EA is a result of capital X, or it can be a replacement of this capital X. So definitely this RX only you will take. You will not take Z, because R is matched here. Now if you look into Z, that Z is yielding or it is giving you AI, which is not matching with your string, which is not matching with your string, but your next two characters are what here? EA, but here it is AI. So you will ignore this one and you will select this one. Okay, because X is giving you EA. Then after that small letter D is there, here also small letter D is there, then definitely it will take this one. Are you understanding now? So this is how we are going to do this top down parser to match our string. Okay, so here we have drawn this one diagrams to understand backtracking. Okay, so how where you implemented backtracking? Of course, where for the first time in X we used OA. It means I replaced capital X by OA, which is not matching with my input. Then I replace it with EA by going and visiting once again X. So that is nothing but backtracking. Here I am going to show you that capital S is a start symbol. Okay, that capital S here you can observe, guys, this grammar with these diagrams. Okay, so here in this diagram what is going on here? Here capital S is RXD, because you have selected RXD. Then the next thing is you want to replace capital X, and again you have two options, either OA. So first you try with OA, and if it is not matching here, this is R, first character, O, A, D. So it is going to give you some other word, that is road. instead of read. Are you understanding? Instead of giving you read or instead of matching read, it is matching road, ROAD. So because of that only, here we are going to perform backtracking. So we will go back to X, and in X we will find out is there any yield or string which is going to match my input string. So definitely there is EA is there which is matching. So I will replace that O with E here. Okay, this is the next production. Then you will get READ, that is read. So instead of road, now you got read. So this is about backtracking, guys. I hope you understood. Okay. So then predictive parser. Predictive parser, I already told you in your grammar, in your top-down parsing, particularly if it is a recursive descent parser, it means continuously you are keep on constructing the parse tree from top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, and repeatedly you are keep on replacing the non-terminals by the terminals. That is recursive descent. Okay. So here in this recursive descent, if you are not using any backtracking, then it is called as a predictive parser. Remember these all technical words. Clear? So then here some just categorization I am going to give you here. Top sorry, this not this one. LL parser. Already I told you, I think LL parser and LL grammar. So here in LL parser, just now I told you, no, LL parser in this MS Word file only at the top I had shown you. So it was written like this, LL1. What do you mean by this one? It means that how many number of characters I should look ahead. Okay. So first L is nothing but scan the input from left to right. Second capital L is telling me perform leftmost derivation. And what about this K value in bracket? K value may be any value like 0, 1, 2, 3 or something. Okay. So what it is going to tell me? It is going to how many number of characters I should look ahead. It means I should keep on looking into further. Just best example I think I had given in your previous classes, guys. Suppose just imagine a small pond is there. A small pond is there in a park or garden. So sometimes you might have observed that in that pond, in the middle of water somewhere with some constant distance, you will be having a one foot step there to keep your foot. So some small stone or something is kept there. Okay. So if you are standing already on your bank of that pond, if you want to cross that pond through those with the help of those small stones in that pond, first leg you will put on your first stone, and next at that staying in that first stone, you will keep on planning your path there. So where I can keep my next foot. Okay, where I can keep my next foot. If I keep my next foot there, where I can put my its next foot, that also you will plan here only, you will prepare here only, otherwise you will fall down in the water. Are you getting, guys? This is the same way how we are going to do this parsing here. Step by step, character by character, we are keep on looking to our input. Oh, if I take this input character, what will be my next input character? What will be its next character also? Sometimes it is very much essential to scan more than one or two characters for my safety purpose. So same thing here also we are going to do by mentioning it in this bracket. Okay. Because you are going to do leftmost derivation and you are scanning the input from left to right. So while scanning the left to right, how many characters you should keep on look ahead? Look ahead means you should keep on looking into the next characters, next input characters. How many characters is required maximum? It is 1 here, and it is not the case always. Okay, it may be 2 also sometimes. Okay, so this is about LL and LR and backtracking, non-backtracking, predictive parsing, top-down, recursive descent, these all things. Okay. Okay, guys, let us go to today's topic actually. That is, in previous class, I discussed error recovery strategies. There are 3 to 4 error recovery methods are there. One is panic mode, phrase level, and error productions and global correction. These all things we have discussed, right? So today, let me to go to next topic, that is the main topic, context free grammars. In my notes, it is a 3.2. That is second topic of third module. Second topic of third module. Context-free grammars. So here, so grammars are nothing but they are set of instructions. Set of productions. A list of productions with some non-terminals and terminals. Okay, what these productions are going to tell us or give us the information, or what they are going to describe, what they are going to explain us. These grammars, definitely, if you consider your English language only, what that grammar is going to do in our English language, it is going to describe our language, correct? It is going to tell us the rules of English grammar, right? English language. Similarly, here also, in our compiler design, or in our finite automata and all these things, grammars are nothing but they are going to describe the languages. So particularly, if you want to take one more step ahead, and if you want to deeply you want to tell, it is not going to only describe or explain the language. It means that, in the sense, it is going to explain or describe the syntax of that language. The syntax of that language constructs. What are called as a language constructs? The looping statements, branching statements, these all are called as language constructs. Particularly here, I am calling them as expressions and statements. Statements are nothing but looping statements or branching statements. And apart from looping and branching statements, sometimes in our program we may be having expressions also. So though those expressions and statements, I am calling them as language constructs. So these grammars are very, very helpful to describe these syntax of expressions, syntax of these statements. Okay, so grammars will describe the syntax of language constructs like statements and expressions. Remember, guys. So for expressions in our explanation, we are keep on going to use one particular variable to represent that expression. That variable is expr, small letter expr. Then we are going to use one more variable for statements, that is stmt. Okay, so here one production I have written. Statement can be replaced by, or it may be in this form, or it may take this form, that is if followed by a parenthesis. Expression is nothing but a condition of if, that is if condition, then followed by statement. If this condition is true, this statement will be executed. If this condition is false, then you come to else part and you execute the next statement, right? So this production is telling us the structure of this form of conditional statement. Conditional statements will be in this structure or in this statement. So we are writing this syntax of conditional statements in the form of production. Head of the production, body of the production, and the entire production is called as grammar. Of course, it is not only the production. Of course, there may be set of or list of productions. So then those all productions or set of productions or list of productions is called as grammars. Okay. So other productions then define the precisely what is exactly the expression and what is the exactly the statement, because this production or this grammar is incomplete still. This is only one production of my grammar, that is first production of my grammar. Then in this body of this production, again there are some non-terminals are there, like expr and stmt. Still I don't know what is this stmt and this stmt, and I don't know what is this expr. So I have to define them still. So then only it will complete, it will be called as a complete grammar. So here whatever the bold letters I have written, these are called as terminals. No need to define them, these are the dead end. So I am calling them as terminals. These terminals only will become a leaf node in your parse tree. In fact, this open parenthesis and close parenthesis are also terminals. Whatever the italics I have written, these are non-terminals. I have to still define them. I don't know what is expression, right? I don't know what is this statement. I don't know what is this statement. So still I have to define them with 3 more productions in this grammar. Clear, guys? Then let us see the formal definition of a context-free grammar or grammar. Just now what I told you, it is informal definition actually. Grammar describes programming language constructs like expressions and statements. It is informal definition. So anybody ask you what is grammar or what is context-free grammar, both are alternative words. Don't worry. Instead of again and again calling them as context-free grammar, simply we are calling it as grammar in short. Okay. So that informal definition you can tell, but formal official definition, technical definition is this one, and it is better to write this definition along with that previous definition just now what I told you in your exam. Okay, so the grammar is, its full form is actually context free grammar, but in short we call it as only grammar. Okay, so it contains terminals, non-terminals, and one start symbol and some productions. So let us define one by one. What is terminal? What is non-terminal? Already I told you terminals are nothing but they are symbols. They are symbols from which we are going to create the strings. Best example is in your English language, strings is nothing but so sequence of characters which are enclosed within double quotes. Right. So here instead of characters or letters, I am calling them as symbols. So these symbols are nothing but terminals. So usually in our compilation process, whatever we are calling now token, 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 those tokens are nothing but these terminals only. Okay, so you can give the alternative name for these terminals as a token. Okay, or else you can call it as a token name. Terminal is nothing but what here? Token name. Just previous example only if you consider here IF and else is there, no, both of them are terminals. We no need to define them once again. So you can call them as terminals and you can call them as a tokens. Token if, token else, token open parenthesis, token closed parenthesis. And I already told you in a token there are two parts are there, token name and attribute value. Okay, so attribute value is not necessary for operators and keywords. Attribute values are necessary for only identifiers or variables. Okay, but just now whatever I have shown you, if and else and open parenthesis, close parenthesis, these all are punctuation symbols or operators, and these all are keywords. So for keywords, punctuations and operators, attribute value is not required, only token name is required. Okay, but for identifiers, token name is also required as well as attribute value is also required. So here terminals are nothing but the symbols from which we are going to form or create the strings. Clear? So alternative word is for terminals. You can consider the terminals as a token name or tokens. Then non-terminals. These are not symbols. These are actually variables. Okay, these are variables which are going to denote the strings. It means left of our production, head of our production contains non-terminals. Okay, so in our previous example, statement, expr, these all are called as non-terminals. Okay, so here next one is a grammar. In a grammar, there will be one non-terminal, one specific non-terminal. Among all non-terminals, there will be one special non-terminal which is called as a start symbol. Always this start symbol will be present in a first production. Okay, this start symbol will become the root node in our parse tree or syntax tree. Clear? Then next is a production of a grammar. Specify the manner in which the terminal non-terminal can be combined to form the string. Okay, every production I am calling, no, how that production look like actually? There will be non-terminal which is called as a head or left side of the production. Left side, already I told you, left side of our productions are always non-terminals. These are called as head of the production or LHS of production or left side of production, right? Non-terminals will be LHS, and terminals will be at the right side. And right side, not only terminals will be there, sometimes combination of terminals as well as non-terminals will be there. But in between these right side and left side, there will be one arrow mark. This symbol or this arrow mark, sometimes we represent it by using or denote it by using double colon equal mark. Why, sir? Because you know, in our keyboard we don't have this right arrow mark. Of course we have right arrow mark, but it is a navigation key. It means it is used to move your cursor to forward, not to print arrow mark on your screen. If you want to print arrow mark, you can use one option, that is hyphen greater than symbol. That is not correctly, it will not display as a right arrow mark. So because of that only, so instead of that we are going to use one alternative symbol, that is double colon equal mark. which is nothing but this arrow mark only. Okay, in your question paper also or in any some textbook, so if you are looking into this symbol double colon equal mark, don't get confusion. It is nothing but it is a arrow mark only. Okay, so then the body or right side of the production will be having a zero or more number of terminals and non-terminals. I already told you. Right side there will be combination of both terminals and non-terminals. Okay, guys, I think this meeting will end within 2 or 3 minutes. So just I complete these examples, then you rejoin the meeting. Okay, so in every production these three things will be there: a non-terminal will be there, and one arrow mark will be there, and non-terminal non-terminal will terminal and non-terminals will be there in RHS. Next one example is here, the grammar in this figure. Okay, here I have written one grammar. Okay, so this grammar is going to define simple arithmetic expressions. Then the terminal symbols, we are just concentrating on terminal symbols here in this grammar are identifier, ID, arithmetic operators since it is arithmetic expression, plus minus, multiplication, division, and these open parenthesis and close parenthesis are also called as terminal symbols. Then what about non-terminals, sir? Of course, non-terminals are expression, term, and factor. Expression, term, and factor are non-terminals. Because of that only we are defining them. So here in LHS of all these productions, they are appearing here: expression, term, and factor. Clear? So expression may be expression plus term, or else it may be expression minus term, and expression may be only term also, only operand also. A plus B, A minus B, or only A, only B also expression. Then what is exactly term? Term may be term multiplied by factor, or term may be divided by factor. Now you don't know what is factor and what is this factor. So term can be factor only. Term can be only factor. Now what is this factor? Factor is nothing but any expression which is parenthesized. Any expression which is parenthesized is called as factor. And what is one more possibility of factor? Factor may be identifier also. Factor may be only one identifier also. So in this one example of grammar, these are the non-terminals, and these are the terminals. Clear, guys? Okay. So now next I tell you notational conventions. So when we should use capital letters, when we should use small letters, these all things I tell you. Just guys, give me 5-minute break, and you rejoin sharp at 11:45. Okay, now you leave the meeting, and sharp 11:45 you rejoin the meeting.